Welcome to Mock 10 Sports and the September 14th, 2023 episode. Appreciate you joining us tonight. We got off to a little bit later start tonight. Had some personal stuff. Actually, if I'm being honest with you, we went to a birthing class, me and my wife. We have a kid due in November, so I had previous obligations, but I was not going to go a Thursday without giving you, obviously, money-making Thursday. We're talking SEC predictions. I'm here to give it to you guys. Here to give it to you. We also have some breaking news. Some breaking news to some extent. We'll get to it here in just a minute. But everybody's kind of just saying it's going to be a sleepy week. I don't know. I feel like every time we feel like there's going to be a sleepy week, there's a lot of upsets. There's a lot of upsets out there, crazy games. People are kind of sleeping on this weekend, but you know what that means. It usually means something crazy is going to happen. Like I said, it's Prediction Thursday. We're going to go through all the SEC matchups, give you a winner on all of them. Like I said, making money Thursday. And we already have one bet on the table tonight. Memphis Navy playing right now. I think they're knotted up. We're giving up, took Memphis minus 13.5. Still, it's one of those crazy years in college football, man. You try to figure out teams. It's just the portal makes it difficult. But we're going to keep coming. We're going to keep coming. It's only week 3. A tie ball game. We're giving up 13.5. I think about midway through the third. We still got a shot. But no guest tonight. We're going to have Cooper Patagna on from 247 Sports, recruiting analyst from 247 Sports, was going to join us. But again, like I told you, last minute ad for a hospital visit with regards to my wife's current pregnancy. So that's why we're not there. Some interesting topics we talked about there, but it's a story for another time. But around the SEC, let's get to it real quick. Again, remember, we cover all 3 sports in the SEC, all the big 3 sports. Football, obviously, it's prime football season. It's fall. You can feel it in the air. We also talk basketball and baseball. And with that being said, this week you probably saw the SEC announce their 2024 conference baseball schedule. So let me share that for you real fast before we get in. This is the Around the SEC segment. Again, I get it. People don't really want to talk baseball. We're just going to go right through the schedule just immediately. Pull it up right here for you just so you have a visual. All right, just breaking it through. Right, talk about every season. But what kind of jumps off to me from glancing at it, LSU just starts off. I know that every week in the SEC's murderer's row, but look, at Mississippi State, Florida comes to town, a rematch of the national championship game at Arkansas, Vandy at home, at Tennessee, and then finally get somewhat of a break against Missouri. But just kind of looking through the schedule, great matchups as always. We got a few new coaches in the league at Missouri and Alabama and Georgia as well. We just want to talk about that a little bit. You see the first opening weekend, March 15th through 16th, Tennessee at Alabama, Missouri at Arkansas, Auburn at Vanderbilt, Texas A&M at Florida, Georgia at Kentucky. We mentioned LSU, Mississippi State, and South Carolina headed to Oxford to open up play for 10 weekends. But just want to talk about that. Just let you see that. I've retweeted that. Quote tweeted it. I'll repost it again for you SEC baseball fans out there. Again, we're talking about this. I know we're in the midst of football season. It's week 3. That's what we want to talk about. But we're still going to cover the 2 other sports, 2 other big sports, basketball and baseball. We talked basketball, open up their schedule with 2024 SEC baseball. The conference baseball schedule was announced this week. And then also you should be getting your team's full schedule, all 14 teams, full game schedule here coming up with some of the non-conference plays. Some teams have announced some of these pre-tournaments they're going to. We'll obviously start talking about that as baseball season gets closer, but didn't want to go through the episode and us talk about Around the SEC without sharing it. So let's go back. But we do have some news. We do have some news out there. Heard this through a pretty good source this evening in regards to Alabama football news. I'm about 99% sure Tyler Buchner is going to get the start in Tampa this week against South Florida. Can never be fully guaranteed. In fact, there's only 2 things out there that are guaranteed in life, death and taxes. So I'm not going to go above and beyond here to guarantee that. I feel really good about this, though. I feel really good about this one. Tyler Buchner's going to get the start this week. Going to get the start against South Florida. I actually like the decision. It's a good time. You're not throwing him first start against Ole Miss. I know it'll be at home, but first game of the conference play, it'd be tough to get him settled in. Starting him against South Florida, I think, is the right move. It is. I think it's the right move. I think it's going to give Alabama the best shot to ultimately go compete for the SEC West and ultimately compete for the SEC championship, with obviously leads on some other things, playoff, national championship. I think Tyler Buchner, again, we haven't seen him since the Gator Bowl against South Carolina, where he was named Gator Bowl MVP. Had some bad throws to that as well. Again, Alabama's quarterback room from top to bottom it's going to be a big drop off from what we've seen from the previous 4 guys. But Tyler Buchner, heard it here first, going to get the start this week at Raymond James Stadium against the South Florida Bulls unless something changes here in the next 36 hours. I would be shocked with that. Also, Tyler Booker, word is back injury. He's going to be out a couple weeks. That means Terrence Ferguson's going to move in, get the start at guard. And then Seth McLaughlin, people are giving him a hard time about his snaps. Has some hand issues. So that has something to do with it. Not saying that's an excuse, but just so people know, that's what it is. So some quick breaking news right off the bat on this episode. Right off the bat, Tyler Buchner is going to get the start this weekend against South Florida. About 95, 99% sure on that from my start talking to my source this evening. Tyler Booker, starting guard for Alabama. He's going to be out too. Has back injury. Be out a couple weeks. It's Terrence Ferguson's time to slide in. And Seth McLaughlin's a little banged up with a hand injury. So that's in regards to snaps. I don't think this is something this is going to get out here the next 36 hours. This isn't some groundbreaking. I think people have been more shocked over other things before in life. So it's getting crazy. Obviously, the biggest piece of that I just broke to you is the Tyler Buchner getting the start over Jalen Milroe. Does it mean it's over? No. I mean, there's been some rumors out there that Buchner's been running with the ones between the 20s, and then they're bringing Milroe in red zone situations. Yeah, I like the creativity. So it leaves a lot of room there for turnovers. I'm big on turnovers. If you give the opponent the shortest field, like Jalen Milroe did against Texas this past week, deep red zone or deep in your own territory interception, it just can't happen. Can't happen. But we'll see. We'll see Saturday. Looks like Buchner's going to get the start. Let's get right into this. SEC prediction time. There's no reason to sugarcoat this episode. Let's get right into it. Previews of the Big Six, then we'll get into the other ones. LSU at Mississippi State, 11 a.m. Central Standard Time Zone on ESPN. LSU currently favored by 9.5. Setting the tone here, man. LSU obviously needs a bounce-back performance from its fourth quarter meltdown against Florida State, as we all remember. This is their next test for this 2023 season and first true road game. For whatever reason, this game's always close to the start. Well, since I really since about 2010, 2011, 2011 really was. This game's always close. For whatever reason, this game's always close when it's in Starkville. From an LSU perspective, I want to see more balance from the Tigers on offense and just show some improvement on defense. That's what you're wanting to see. In back-to-back games, LSU has shown struggles at all levels of their defense. Has shown struggles at all levels of their defense in different ways. The Florida State game, they were torched through the air. And last week, I believe they gave up 166 yards or something like that on the ground of Grambling State. So LSU hasn't really had a complete defensive performance yet. Granted, Florida State, I think, is going to be a playoff team, win the ACC. They have some weapons, and Jordan Travis is going to be a dude, obviously. I mean, you got Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson. I mean, obviously, come on. But Grambling State running on them is interesting. That was with Mason Smith back. And again, Mason Smith, good pass rusher on the interior. You need that. Like I've told you, quarterbacks would rather go against the edge rusher, than they would have guys getting pushed back on their feet and in their face. So the interior pressure affects quarterbacks more than the edge, more than people think. But I don't fully trust Mason Smith holding up against the run. I don't. Maybe that's just a me thing. But this is a week to flex its muscles defensively, because State's coming into this game and offense looking completely different than they have the last 3 seasons under Mike Leach. Unless you've been living under a rock for the past 2 weeks, you would know that. Will Rogers against Arizona last week only threw the ball 17 times. Woody Marks, running back, touched the ball 24 to 25 times if you include his receptions. This is a Kevin Barbay offense. Came over from App State. Definitely wants to run to set up the pass. You can tell. Now, the key will be what kind of offensive strategy are they going to use this week? Are they bringing in this week against LSU? I mean, Zach Arnett even said after the game, he thinks the game plan from last week, as much as they ran the ball, will have to obviously change to beat LSU this week. Some say attack the LSU secondary, and there's a lot of truth to that. But if Mississippi State's able to run the ball similar to what Grambling State did to LSU last week, it's going to open it. It's not could. It's going to open up some more passing lanes and give them some more deep shots. On the flip side, the Mississippi State defense, solid unit, led by their 2 inside backers, Nathaniel Watson and Jet Johnson. Also, don't forget about the 6-year senior safety, Sean Preston, does a solid job. They got some youth behind him, though, that he's going to have to lead. My personal opinion here, the key to this game, the key here is how will LSU utilize Jaden Daniels in the run game, and how will Mississippi State contain him? That's the key to this game, in my opinion. That is the key to this game when LSU has the football. Whether it's design runs or improvision runs, how does Mississippi State contain him, or how does Jaden Daniels' legs hurt him? I mean, really, if you go back and watch, Arizona's Jaden Delar, the quarterback for Arizona this past week, had some success off improvision last week. Big game for both teams. If LSU wins, they feel like they are right back on track. 1-0 in SEC play. Arkansas coming to your town next week. You could forget about that Florida State game real fast. If LSU comes out and looks good this week, gets a big win against Arkansas at home next week. You're 3-1, 2-0 in conference. Florida State game seems like a long time ago at that point. It would seem like a long time ago at that point. A loss means a lot, though. A lot here for Brian Kelly and his squad. A loss here means a lot of people were wrong on LSU heading to the season, and they're probably going to most likely end up being a 3 or 4 loss team. I mean, they're not going to be a losing record team. Let's be honest here. It's a 3 or 4 loss team. If they were to lose this game this weekend against Mississippi State and Starkville, it would mean LSU was overrated, like I mentioned. Everybody kind of ranked them high going into the season this year just off the big Alabama win last year, which is what it is. I think that just is what it would be right there. For Mississippi State, a win would be the perfect start for the Zach Arnett era. I mean, you couldn't have written it better. I mean, a Disney movie couldn't have written the script better than that. Words can't describe what it would mean to Zach Arnett and the Mississippi State program if they were to start off 1-0, get a big win against SEC rival LSU. A loss for Mississippi State, as long as it's competitive, really doesn't mean much. It really doesn't. But as you know, baby, where this game will be won. Mississippi State's decision on how to attack the LSU defense. Look, Zach Arnett has already come on at times and says he regrets some of the coaching decisions so far in his young head coaching career that he's had through 2 games at Mississippi State, or 3 if you include the bowl game. But how Kevin Barbay and Zach Arnett decide to attack the LSU defense that has struggled in both the passing and running game this year is going to determine the outcome. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know if I have an answer to that. I don't right now. Personally, I think State should try and attack LSU through the air, but they need to be careful and not just abandon the run because LSU has shown holes in the defense. Not saying they can't just go attack LSU through the air, but Mississippi State didn't have the weapons like most people teams don't know. Guys like Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson, they just don't. If State can run the ball, or if LSU can stop the run, if LSU can't stop the run, I should say, LSU is going to be in trouble. If Mississippi State goes out there and is able to control the line of scrimmage on offense, LSU is going to be in trouble. LSU is going to be in trouble. But State does need to be timely and aggressive in his play calling, though. You don't need to just go take shots, bombs over Baghdad. You also don't need to just, hey, we're going to go run the football because we think they did it because Grambling State had success. I mean, you need to be aggressive, but be balanced, mix in tempo, take shots. When you're in areas you feel comfortable to take shots, throw in a few trick plays in there. Throw those on the menu. Another thing I can't predict, how will Matt House, Brian Kelly to an extent, how will the LSU defense use Harold Perkins Jr.? It's another question. Vice versa. I think if State can't run, State won't be able to hold up against an LSU pass rush that should be starving for success after their underwhelming performance against Florida State. Again, I'm not huge on Mississippi State's wide receivers. Again, not even in the same remote atmosphere as the guys they faced at Florida State. It scares me a little bit. Mississippi State's receivers. I mean, Griffin, is that your number one guy? I mean, I really like Creed Whittemore, the true freshman. I think that's a guy you're going to have to try to get the football to. But again, I don't really think Mississippi State on the outside has a dude. So I don't think you're going to see as much success, or I don't think you will see Mississippi State have the success Florida State did. I'm not saying anybody will say that, but I don't think it's as easy this week as go. I think you try it for sure because that's LSU's weak spot. I just don't think it's going to be as easy as some people think. Let's get to the prediction. I think this game's going to be close for the half, going into the fourth quarter. If LSU comes out quick and gets up 14, 17, 21-0 right off the bat, this smells trouble for the Dogs. I don't think Mississippi State's offense this year, with the offensive line struggling to protect right now, and obviously their strength right now is running the football, I don't really think they're going to be able to catch up. They're not going to play catch up. The offense this year is not built to come back from that. State just needs to be in the vicinity to steal this one late. Just need to be in it going into the fourth quarter. Again, this all comes down to the kind of offensive strategy and how Kevin Barbay and the Mississippi State offense want to attack this LSU defense. If you haven't been in one of those offensive meetings all week or out at practice, you really don't know. But you know it's going to be different. They're not just going to go run their head into a wall over and over again. My prediction, I think State dabbles, dips their toes in the water in the run game, and they see what happens. Go off play action from there. They have success. They stay with it. And obviously, that should open up the passing game if they're getting the run game going. However, I believe the LSU defensive line and its edge defenders played their best game so far this season in the run game and are able to get to Will Rogers enough to cash in on some critical turnovers to pull away in the second half. I like LSU 34-24. LSU just covering that 9.5-point spread. But I think it's going to be something like that. I mean, you said game to start, like you said, it's LSU pulling away late and stealing kind of a double-digit win when the game was probably closer than the score indicated. Something similar to that, 34-24. If you made me pick, I'd probably say LSU to cover. But again, I think LSU leaves Starkville feeling a little bit better than themselves than they did leaving Orlando 2 weeks ago. They head back home heading into week 4, 1-0 in conference with Arkansas heading to Tiger Stadium next week. I think that's the way this one goes. Next big one, another morning. Two of the better games in the league, 11 a.m., some early kickoffs. Kansas State at Missouri, 11 a.m. Central Standard Time Zone kick, SEC Network, K-State, Kansas State, currently favored by 4.5. Setting the tone here for you. Very interesting matchup here, in my opinion, with a lot on the line. Massive game for Eli Drinkwitz. I mean, this win would be his best win so far in his tenure at Como. This is a big trajectory game. Kansas State has a lot. It looked like the overall better team, in my opinion, through 2 games. But I hate comparing opponents through 2 weeks because they're so different. But Kansas State, the win versus Troy last week, very impressive. I mean, Troy won the Sun Belt last year. Trap game for them. K-State dominated. There's a lot of people being like myself thinking it too. A lot of people I trust on opinions like, man, that's a game K-State could come down to the wire with because Troy's no joke. They may be looking ahead to Missouri. No, they took care of business. Chris Kleiman just does a fantastic job in Manhattan. Missouri, so far, has looked below average, both up front on the offensive line at quarterback position. Brady Cook's got to get it figured out. He's got to connect with Luther Burden when they have chances downfield. This is a springboard game for both Missouri and Kansas State. Kansas State, they win this. They can still say, hey, everybody's talking about Texas and their big win against Alabama last week. But you know what? We're the defending conference champs. We're here. We're going to have a say in this title race. We're going to have a say in this. Missouri, on the other hand, this is a program-defining win. Missouri and Eli Drinkwitz have recruited well so far at Missouri. This could take it to the next level. This is a big win to go get a defending Big 12 champion, played in a CFP Bowl last year. They embarrassed you, 42-something to 10 last year in that rain delay game in Manhattan. So it'd be a big, big game for Eli Drinkwitz. Biggest game of his career, I think, so far. It would get a lot of people off his back. I think he would be off the hot seat with this win. Where it will be won, Missouri's offensive line versus Kansas State's defensive line. Most games are won in the trenches, but specifically this one. It's early, but Kansas State comes into this game with the number 1 rushing defense in the country and a top 10 in team sacks. Again, through 2 weeks. But they're led by Khalid Duke, who has wreaked havoc in their first 2 matchups against SEMO, Southeastern Missouri, and then Troy. Missouri, on the other hand, has struggled to get any kind of push for South Dakota and Middle Tennessee State. I just don't see Missouri getting the run game going here. I don't have a lot of confidence in that. Brady Cook cannot be the most confident guy right now. There's no way. He's missed a lot of opportunities, left a lot of food on the table on those deep shots, explosive plays, especially to Luther Burden. I mean, you just can't leave those open. They have other weapons too, man. Mookie Cooper, Theo Weiss. And as I stated, the K-State pass rush, by far the best pass rush Missouri's seen so far this season. Now, Middle Tennessee State has an interesting strategy where it's almost like a kamikaze style. They're coming right after you. They're blitzing different gaps. They may be wrong at times and you're going to bust a big play, but sometimes they're going to get you for a big negative play. They're just aggressive. They're going to play their style of defense. Coach Schaefer, as their defense coordinator, does a fantastic job. But if Missouri were to win this game, you're going to look back and I would guarantee you the offensive line and Brady Cook played their best game they've played in 2 years if Missouri is to win this game. But it's prediction time, guys. I just don't trust Eli Drinkwitz in big games. Don't kill me, Missouri fans. I just don't. I'm not as down on Drink as some people, but I just don't trust him in big games until I see it. I could easily be wrong. Been wrong before. And I'll admit it. But Mizzou is going to have to play a bare minimum B-plus game in this. They can't go play a B-minus, C-plus game and expect to win. Brady Cook and the offensive line are going to have to be better than they've been this year and last year, probably. Really. Then throw in the K-State offense led by Will Howard. They've been very efficient so far, even with their best playmaker leaving last year, after this past season, Deuce Vaughn. They have enough weapons to go be productive on offense. And we hadn't talked about it, but Missouri's defense, solid group. But I think K-State puts a long drive together at the beginning of fourth quarter to wear down a Missouri defense that's just been carrying the load all week, all Saturday morning, because Missouri's offense, Their offensive line, Brady Cook, just cannot extend drives and take advantage of big plays, big opportunities when they're presented. I just think the offense is going to be a liability this week against a good Kansas State front. Prediction: I got Kansas State 28-14, so I have K-State covering the -4.5. It seems like everybody's going in on that. The -4.5 K-State worries me a little bit, but I broke down the game, not even really thinking about the spread. I just think Kansas State's about 2 scores still better than Missouri, just too good up front. The edge guy like Khalil Duke's going to get after Brady Cook. Haven't seen much to give me much confidence he's going to start taking advantage again of the deep opportunities this week against the best defenses he's seen. I mean, he hadn't done it against South Dakota. The offensive line didn't get much push against South Dakota or Middle Tennessee State. So why would it start this week? It's 2 + 2 = 4. But I see Kansas State leaving Como with the 28-14 win. Man, that'd be a bit. That's a big one, man. It's a big one. It's a big tone setter for Eli Drinkwitz. I mean, he's on the hot seat rolling into it right now. We'll talk about Arkansas here in a minute. I feel like him and Sam Pittman are a little bit in the same room. Sam Pittman's not on a hot seat. No one go cold take me and cut this. But big games for both. I just don't think Eli Drinkwitz gets it done. I'm sorry, Mizzou fans. Next, the 2:30 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone CBS game. South Carolina at Georgia. Georgia currently a 27.5-point favorite. Setting the tone for you here. South Carolina has not been great on the road in the SEC under Shane Beamer. They just haven't. Now, that's not going to be the reason South Carolina potentially loses this week. I think they can play this game wherever, in Columbia, wherever you want. Georgia's the better team. Georgia's the deepest roster when healthy in the entire country. Shocker. But it's just the truth, and we all know it. South Carolina rolling into Athens 1-1 with tough games against Mississippi State at home next week and at Tennessee looming. Things can get ugly for the Gamecocks quick. Get ugly. But as bad as South Carolina's been up front on offense, Spencer Rattler's been really good. For him running for his life, he's been really good, completing 80% of his passes. Now, keeping him upright, maybe even alive this week will be a task. I don't really know how fixable the offensive line is right now. I really don't. And that's hard to say because we're only through 2 weeks, and I have no confidence that offensive line gets better. Georgia has been a bit underwhelming in their first 2 games against UT Martin and Ball State. I mean, it's easy to say in games that you've won 48-7 and 45-3, you've been struggling. And they've had some guys out, but let's see a little bit more push out of the offensive line. But there were some obvious issues up front, speaking of that offensive line, and its ability to get push. Pass pro was fine. I think they protected Brock Vandagriff and the guys behind him when they've got some mop-up duty. I think they protected fine. It's getting the push. I think there's still some questions on Carson Beck. Not bad. I just think questions. I think some questions. Not necessarily. I think he just hadn't had a chance to prove it. Not necessarily poor performances, but just some questions. I also don't think, and I hate to say this, but let's be honest, Georgia was not necessarily chomping at the bit to go get after UT Martin or Ball State. They just weren't. This is their first real test. And let's be real here. There's no love lost between Kirby Smart and Shane Beamer. Never really got down to the nitty-gritty of why, but they just don't like each other. But if Kirby Smart smells blood in the water and has a chance to go run this score up and cover the spread, I'm sure Kirby's going to say he doesn't know the spread. The spread's 27.5, remember? If they get a chance to go run it up, they are. And I think this is Kirby Smart. You talk about Tonka Hemingway, you talk about the loudest environments he's gone into. He didn't mention Georgia. Kirby got asked about it in his press conference, and he kind of used it as some motivation. I mean, it's crazy the way he gets to motivate his team. I mean, he convinced some people had him going 7-5 last year. No one had Georgia going 7-5 last year. But internally, it's kind of like Michael Jordan. If you go watch The Last Dance, that documentary, he made stuff up internally to go motivate him to go be his best, even if it wasn't necessarily true. Like, I remember when he was talking about people saying Clyde Drexler was better than him, and he was like in reality, I don't think people really believe that. But in his head, he was like, oh, people think Clyde Drexler is better than me. I'm about to go crush this guy. I think this is Kirby's chance. I think this is the first game you kind of see Georgia be like, all right, baby, it's SEC play. It's SEC play. It's at home. It's time for us to go. It's time for us to buckle it up. It's go time. We're starting conference play. It's go time. I mean, I know they have UAB next week, but we're really starting to get into it. Well, this game will be won. Pretty simple. Georgia's defensive line for South Carolina's offensive line. We mentioned it in the setting the tone. This may be the easiest where it was won probably all weekend, maybe for the season. Opponents, North Carolina and Furman, have combined 10 sacks through 2 games against South Carolina. And the run game for the Gamecocks have been non-existent. Remember, they averaged -2 yards rushing against North Carolina 2 weeks ago. South Carolina overall for the season through 2 games against North Carolina and Furman, averaging less than 2 yards per carry. That's awful. That's awful. Not trying to be funny here. I'm really not. But why would that magically change this weekend in Athens against a good defensive front? There was a game for Georgia's pass rush. I'll say this, that you'd like to see a little bit on Georgia's defense, who I think is really good. A lot of the questions and remarks are coming towards Georgia's offense. What about Georgia's defense? The pass rush, maybe. And again, if I'm South Carolina, I'm getting it out quick. So those sack numbers aren't necessarily going to be there. But it's a question mark for Georgia's defense. But if it was to get going, no better week than now. I mean, North Carolina got 9 sacks against these guys. But prediction. Well, as bad as the offensive line has been for the Gamecocks, I just mentioned this, Dow Logans and Shane Beamer know that as well. They're not idiots. They know that. On some passing situations, expect some quick throws to the outside to try and negate the Georgia pass rush. The key will be the key for Georgia here will be getting off blocks and making plays on the perimeter. And Georgia's one of the best tackling teams in the country. So I have no worry about that. Not worried about that. One of the best tackling teams in the country. The only way is this is close is if South Carolina is about +3 in turnover margin and gets a special teams or defensive score. Prediction, I'm going to go Georgia 42-10. I think they do cover. I think Georgia looks really good this week. For what I just think this is a game they usually come out. They kind of sleptwalk through the first 2 weeks. I think it's go time now. I think it's go time. Throw in the fact him and Shane Beamer aren't necessarily exchanging Christmas cards. I like Georgia big in this one. Next, BYU at Arkansas, 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone kickoff on ESPN2. Arkansas currently favored by 8.5 the last time I looked. Setting the tone for you here. I feel like we know nothing about either one of these teams so far, except both have had their struggles on offense the first 2 games. Sam Pittman needs this one. I mentioned the Eli Drinkwitz. I think they're kind of in the same boat this week where they both need these non-conference wins. No, his seat's not high. He's a good fit in Arkansas. I'm not saying that. But there are 2 coaches, like I said, him and Eli Drinkwitz, that need wins in non-conference play this weekend more so than the other guys. I can tell you, do not expect the same amount of points from these 2 that you did from last season. The final 52-35 last year, Arkansas getting the win in Provo. KJ Jefferson in an incredible game. It's not going to be that high scoring this year, guys. I'm just telling you. I'll say Arkansas has not looked great up front on the offense, and overall, offensively outside of KJ Jefferson, running back Raheem Rocket Sanders will be out. He's not playing. It sounds like a meniscus injury. If you go back and watch the Kent State game like I have this week against Arkansas, they really struggled to get the run game going. And we're just so inconsistent. I should say they were consistent in second and long situations. They were in second and long situations very often. Defensively, the Hogs, like I said, they would be with defensive coordinator Travis Williams. But this is when it steps up play. I mean, they played Western Carolina and Kent State. I mean, they're going to start being challenged here, but they're playing harder, running into the football, gang tackling. You knew that would be an effort's not going to be an issue under Travis Williams. BYU rolls in here 2-0 with wins over Southern Utah and Sam Houston State. You remember Keaton Slovis. It's a name blast from the past, the former USC Pittsburgh quarterback. He's now in Provo. Be getting the start this week for the Cougs. This game's a total mystery to me. I'm going to be completely honest with you, but I do not anticipate a lot of points being scored. Where this game will be won, guys, it's going to be turnovers. Again, a lot of unknowns. Arkansas is not turned the ball over through 2 games yet. BYU is forcing turnovers at around a 4.5%, I think, off the top of my head when I was reading it, of their defensive snaps. They're forcing turnovers on 4.5% of their defensive snaps so far through 2 games this year. Something's going to have to give here. I think whoever wins the turnover battle is going to win this game. Prediction here, no real feel for this one. If someone tells you they do, they're lying. Both teams have strengths, weaknesses, and certainly question marks. One thing to keep an eye on, without Rocket Sanders in this backfield, you're going to have to get into more second and manageable situations here. I mean, what is Dan Enos' answer for that? With the Razorbacks being at home, and the best playmaker on the field in KJ Jefferson, I'm going to go with Arkansas in a close one. Just feel good about that. Arkansas makes 1-2 more plays late, and the Cougs have a critical turnover late. Like I said, this game's going to come down to turnovers. But it just feels like that type of game. Give me Arkansas 24-20. I don't think they cover, but give me Arkansas in a much lower scoring affair than last year. Give me the Hogs 24-20. Moving on, Georgia Tech at Ole Miss. 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone kick on the SEC Network. Ole Miss currently favored by 18. Setting the tone for you here. This is a game Ole Miss fans, maybe even the team a little bit to some extent, overlooking. Don't want to say that. Don't want to speak for them. But you just had your big non-conference game last week. Everybody hyped up for Tulane. and you just beat Georgia Tech last year 42-0 in Atlanta, and you go to Tuscaloosa next for your SEC opener. Wouldn't shock me. That wouldn't shock me if they're looking ahead to that trip to Tuscaloosa next week. But I'm pre-warning you, this is not the same. Oh, screaming out. Sorry, guys. Did we missed the Ole Miss? I'll go back. Let me go back. We'll do the Ole Miss one. So going back to the Ole Miss one. Sorry, I got a text. The screen went out for just a minute. All right, so my real prediction, where this game will be won for Ole Miss. Sorry for people that miss it. Jackson Dart. I think he's the best player on the field, playing like a top 3 quarterback in the SEC right now. I've always loved his upside. Remember, kid from Utah, went to USC, kind of came out of nowhere his senior year of high school. I remember I was at Kansas. One of our recruiting guys brought it and said, man, you got to check out this kid from Utah. And his recruitment just exploded. Jackson Dart in games like this for Ole Miss is that much better. He's that much more exceptional. I like him in games like this. I like it. I mean, Ole Miss doesn't win the game last week against Tulane. They don't win the game last week against Tulane without Jackson Dart. They really don't. No disrespect to Tech. They're going to be improved, but Jackson Dart, I think, just gets the job done here. Prediction, I think this game's going to be closer than people think. I think it is. Georgia Tech is not the same team from last year, but it's not going to matter. Game will be close for about a half, like I was saying earlier, but Ole Miss will have some back-breaking, explosive plays in the second half to come out with a double-digit win, but I don't think they cover. Again, I think it's going to be closer. I think this is kind of a trap game, sandwiched in between the big non-conference game, hyped up all season against Tulane, and then heading to Bama to Tuscaloosa to open up conference play. This screams trap because, again, you beat this team 42-0. I think Ole Miss is going to be fired up. But, again, this is a much improved Tech team. Ole Miss and Ole Miss fans have to understand that. Ole Miss has some issues themselves, but I don't think their issues are going to be enough to just take a loss this week. But I do think it's going to be closer than people think. Ole Miss has issues, but we're really going to find out how big those issues are the next 2 weeks after this when they go to Tuscaloosa and when LSU comes to town. Give me Ole Miss 38-24, double-digit win, but I do not think they cover the 18 on this one, guys. I do not think they cover the 18 on this one. Tennessee at Florida, the big nightcap one here. 6 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone on ESPN. Tennessee -6.5 here. Setting the tone for you. Massive SEC East game here. If you're old enough to remember, this game used to mean something. It was almost played too early at times when Philip Fulmer, Steve Spurrier was there. You didn't throw in Urban Meyer when they were there. It was usually for the SEC East back in the 90s and early 2000s. Massive game. I think this is a big game for Josh Heupel and his Tennessee program, if I'm being completely honest with you. If you are who you say you are and who you think you want to be, this is a game you go win on the road. It is. I mean, you're probably better than Florida. I think you are. But I don't think it's going to be an easy game here. I'm not saying, again, Florida's fighting for their season here. Think of a wounded animal kind of backed into the corner here. They're 1-1. Look bad against Utah. Look discombobulated all over the place. Guys wearing the same jerseys, getting penalties, stuff like that. I think Florida's fighting for their lives here. Their fans know that. Florida's bringing their team, and I think their fans are bringing that lunch pail this week. If they could start off 1-0 in SEC play, 2-1 overall, people are going to forget about that Utah game. Kind of like LSU a little bit. Not trying to hijack LSU into this conversation here. But, again, people, if you start 1-0, 2-0 in conference, people kind of forget about that early season non-conference loss. I mean, you got a wounded animal. Tennessee needs to be careful and locked in and try to come out and start fast. I mean, this is the kind of stuff Tennessee's walking into on Saturday night in Gainesville. This isn't going to be Tiger Stadium at noon that they walked into. Tiger Stadium, hostile environment. But it's not at noon. It's a night game in the swamp. They're back against the wall. This isn't a Tiger Stadium game at noon. This isn't even Athens last year. It was loud in Athens last year. I think this is going to be raucous. Florida doesn't like Tennessee. Tennessee doesn't like Florida. I know that. But again, Florida's a desperate team. Desperate teams are dangerous. It's a big game for Billy Napier. He knows that. His staff knows that. The players know that. The fans know that. And I think Florida fans kind of like, hey, we can help our team. We can will our team to a victory this year. We've seen how Tennessee's played the first 2 weeks, playing tight games against Austin Peay. They're not coming in the swamp and beating us. They're just not. That's the mindset in Gainesville right now. Tennessee needs to turn that switch on real fast and realize that. Not saying they don't, but they need to be prepared for that. When the swamp is rocking, there's no other place like it. I'm being honest with you. From just being there as a visiting team, the potential, I mean, the opportunity all year, this Florida, this swamp environment, this is the only opportunity all year the swamp could be like this. If they lose this, you lose a lot of momentum. You're 1-2, 0-1 in conference. It's not looking great. If the swamp's going to be rocking, it's going to be this Saturday night. It's going to be this. This will be probably a top 2 environment Josh Heupel and his Tennessee program have walked into. Florida, on the other hand, let's talk a little Gator. Florida, on the other hand, can make people forget about Utah if they start 1-0 in conference and play well on Saturday night. I do think Florida is going to look a little different offensively. I think they're going to come in with a little bit better game plan. They're going to be more comfortable. They're going to be at their home field, fans behind them. They just have to Florida just has to be balanced here on offense. And this is a Tennessee defense that I think is pretty good. Florida's got to get similar to Arkansas. They can't get in second and long situations. They're going to stay ahead of the chains, be in 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, be manageable situations. Because, again, like I said, I think Tennessee has one of the more underrated defenses in the country. I think both these defenses are pretty solid. And we'll talk about Florida's defense here in a minute. But where this game will be won, whoever runs the football the best. People have this misconception that Tennessee just likes to spread you out hash to hash and just chunk it downfield every play. They actually want to run the football. They want to run against your lighter boxes. What I mean lighter boxes, when you add extra defenders inside the tackle boxes there. To stop Tennessee's offense consistently, look at what Georgia did last year. You have to be able to stop the run without adding an extra defender to the box. You got to have as many defenders defending the pass as possible. If you can stop their run with only about 5, at times, if you have to, 6 guys, you'll be okay. Florida, on the other hand, in regards to running the football, has 2 really good backs in Montrell Johnson and Trevor Etienne. But however, the offensive line has not looked great in their only test this far, and they're a bit beat up. Tennessee, on the other hand, on their offensive line, is supposed to get center Cooper Mays back this week, so that should help their run game. And I love their running back duo as well, Jalen Wright, or I should say trio, Jalen Wright, Jabari Small, and Dylan Sampson. I like the running backs for both teams in this game. I already mentioned Montrell Johnson, Trevor Etienne. Like I mentioned for Tennessee, Jalen Wright, Jabari Small, and Dylan Sampson. Running the football is going to be key for both these offenses and the quarterback, so they can get them comfortable and get them easy throws right off the bat. Run the football to set up the pass. Prediction. I think this is going to be a low-scoring slugfest. Both defenses will be the talk of the game here. Keep an eye on new Florida's defensive coordinator coming up from Southern Miss. Had a cup of tea at Alabama as the linebackers coach. Austin Armstrong. What is his strategy against Tennessee? By nature, he's an aggressive play caller. But I'm interested to see if he feels like he can play with a soft box to stop the run. How does he feel? There's guys like Scooby Williams, inside linebacker to Florida. Is he going to have a productive game? You can't be overly aggressive against Tennessee because they'll just throw screens and take some to the house, I think, if Florida's corners, their young secondary, can't get off blocks. Both Joe Milton and Graham Mertz are going to be inconsistent, I think, in this one. And I expect Tennessee's defense to kind of be the key here. With that being said, give me a Tennessee defense getting a late stop against a Florida defense in a raucous environment all night. Give me Tennessee in a very close one. Big win for the Vols, 24-21. Tennessee's not going to cover this one, but I do think they get the win. They start off 1-0 in conference play. This game's going to be fun. It is. I think this game's going to be fun. I think Florida's going to look people are going to be more impressed with Florida, I think, this week than they showed against Utah. They're in their own home environment. This is going to be the one game. If the Swamp's rocking this year, I guess maybe the Florida State game at the end of the year, but it depends what Florida's doing. This will be the game for sure, though. It's going to be rocking. How does Tennessee handle that? Tennessee's the hunted right now. It's the first time they're kind of the hunted. They're going on the road, taking the show on the road at night. It's going to be probably the top 2 easily, depending. I know Athens was loud last year. I wasn't there. But again, Athens traditionally doesn't get overly, after working there, it doesn't get overly loud. Let's be honest. Georgia fans may boo me off the stage for that. But I think this is going to be loud. Again, think if you're a Tennessee fan, you have an injured, wounded animal backed into a corner. What is it going to do? It's not just going to sit there and lay that down and die. It's going to do whatever it has to do to survive. That's what Florida, the program, is going to be like. It's what their coaching staff, their players, and their fans. That's the mentality. Tennessee, you better bring your lunch pail. This is going to be a close football game, I'm telling you. But I think Tennessee gets a gutsy win, kind of take you back to the former days, low-scoring game where they win on defense here. I think Tennessee gets the 24-21 win. Around the rest of the SEC here, Alabama, South Florida, 2:30 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone kickoff on ABC. Alabama is currently favored by 33. Bounce-back game for Bama. I told you earlier, breaking news, I believe 95, 99% sure Tyler Buchner is going to get the start. Bama has some injuries on the offensive line. Tyler Booker out with a back injury. I think it's going to be a couple weeks. Throw in Terrence Ferguson. Seth McLaughlin, the center. People saw bad snaps all last week. It's a hand issue. He's got a hand injury. It's only going to get better with time. But just people aren't familiar with South Florida. Alex Golesh, he was the Tennessee offensive coordinator last year, first year at Tennessee. The Bulls are 1-1 with a win versus Florida A&M, and then took a loss to the Hilltoppers of Western Kentucky. The obviously question for Alabama coming in, what is the quarterback position going to look like? Well, Tyler Buchner, I think, is going to get the starts. That'll be interesting. Bama's got to limit the turnovers. Interesting little stat here, though. Alabama's last road game against a group of 5 team. Could you guess it? Gave you about 3 seconds there. 2003 at Hawaii. Bama lost that game. I remember that game. They got killed in that game. Timmy Chang and the boys. The guy that leads Hawaii right now. Bama should win this. I actually like Bama in the first half. We'll get to that in my Making Money Thursday here, or Money Making Thursday here in just a moment. The key for Bama is it's worth tuning in because I think Tyler Buchner is going to get a lot of snaps here. Are the turnovers limited? Be watched out for that. I know South Florida isn't Texas, but again, that's something to be watch out for. I'm telling you, you need to be tuned in for this because Tyler Buchner, I think, has a chance to be the best answer for Alabama going forward. Obviously, there's going to be a drop-off between the previous four guys. But it's all about limiting turnovers. Can Tyler Buchner hit the short to intermediate throws? We saw Jalen Milroe. He has major upside with his deep balls. But it's just one aspect. Got to be able to take the checkdowns, take the intermediate passes, anticipate being open. We look forward to seeing Tyler Buchner from that one. Next, ULM at Texas A&M, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone kick on the SEC Network. Texas A&M minus 36 right now. The Warhawks roll into Kyle Field 2-0 after wins against Army and Lamar. Run first team. I think they'll be playing their starting quarterback who they bench because I think I was reading their backup got hurt who they were gonna roll with. A&M should handle this. They should. I mean, ULM is probably one of the worst passing offenses in the country. If ULM is putting up passing yards on A&M secondary this week, A&M's in trouble. And I'm one that's still kind of on the A&M bandwagon. I don't think it was all bad last week. Secondary was bad. I think there were a lot of good things they could improve on, especially with the SEC West being down right now. But again, A&M should handle this. Remember, they're favored right now by 36. Sanford at Auburn. Little in-state game here. 6 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone, SEC Network Plus, ESPN Plus. Sanford rolls into Jordan-Hare Stadium 1-1 with a win over Shorter and a loss to Western Carolina. Auburn probably comes into this one a little sleepy, coming back from a late cross-country road trip, late-night game against Cal last week. But they need to work on their passing game and limit the turnovers. Maybe expect Auburn to come in a little slow, maybe looking ahead to their conference opener at A&M next week. But it's about to get real for Auburn, too. At A&M, Georgia back-to-back, then LSU, I believe. Get ugly for Auburn. I don't expect Auburn coming out rocking and rolling in this one. I don't. Sanford's going to be playing their tails off in this one. But Auburn could be sleepwalking. Got back really late last week. I don't know exactly, but, I mean, that was a late kickoff, and they're all the way in San Francisco. I had to come back to Auburn. But Peyton Thorne needs to continue to develop in the passing game. That's really what I want to see. And then also Auburn needs to get away from those turnovers. Vanderbilt at UNLV, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone kickoff on the CBS Sports Network. Vandy currently favored by 4.5. Big win. This would be a big win for the Commodores. Not only for any sort of bowl games. They want to get to a bowl game, which I don't think they're going to get to. It's not even going to be close. They have to win this. But if you had them with the team win total, over team win total 3.5, like myself, the Doors and myself need this one. That would put them at 3. They just need one more in conference play. And later in the years, they play maybe a Florida or even Auburn, 2 teams that may be struggling at that point. You never know, they go sneak up on somebody. But Vanderbilt and Clark Lee have to have this one. UNLV, the running Rebels, Barry Odom, former Arkansas defense coordinator, Missouri head coach, new head coach at UNLV, roll into this one 1-1 with a win over Bryant, and they took a loss in Ann Arbor to Michigan last week. Opposite ends of the spectrum here. Opposite ends of the spectrum in their 2 games so far. Bryant, you're not going to learn a lot, and they went and played a team I think that'll be in the playoffs at Michigan. This battle, though, this will be a battle between the running Rebels. Will they be able to limit A.J. Swan and Vandy's explosive plays? Because, again, Vanderbilt has guys on the outside and Will Sheppard and Seth McGowan. I like those 2 guys. But can Vanderbilt's porous defense stop the UNLV run game, who's been solid through 2 games? If I had to predict, give me A.J. Swan to make an explosive play late. Give me the Doors in a very, very close one in Sin City in Las Vegas, Nevada. Vanderbilt needs this one. I'm telling you. Clark Lee and them go look bad on this one, and they're losing on defense, which is his cup of tea. It's not going to be good. It won't look good there. And then finally, Akron at Kentucky, 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone on ESPNU. Kentucky currently favored by 26. Kentucky offensive coordinator Liam Cohen will be back this weekend after a medical scare. Prayers up for him. Sounds like he's all right. But the Cats offensively have to get going. They have this week and they have next week probably against Vanderbilt to get right before Florida, depending what your feel is against Florida. But I'm going to say they have till Florida to get right until Florida comes to town. Akron rolls in 1-1 with a loss to Temple and a win over Morgan State. Zips have been solid versus the run, so this could be a semi-challenge, I guess, to Kentucky's Big Blue Wall. But if Kentucky's going to go try to win 8-9 games this year, the Big Blue Wall has to go take advantage. And the offense as a whole has to be more cohesive, starting with Devin Leary and the receivers and the run game. It has to start to get going. Kentucky's lucky they kind of had an easy schedule in the front end to kind of get it going. But, hey, it's probably a good thing. It's probably a good thing. Like Kentucky here, I don't know an exact final, but I'm not ready to say the line either. Kentucky's favored by 26. But the thing is, really keep an eye on Kentucky's defense or offense here. how are they looking? That's what you need to keep an eye on as the schedule starts to get tougher here in a bit. But that's the wrap up of the SEC games heading into this one. I like LSU in a close one, sluggish game, getting about a 10-point win, 34-24 against Mississippi State. I like K-State to go get another win against Missouri. Just don't trust Missouri's quarterback play offensive line in this one. I like K-State 28-14. South Carolina at Georgia. I think Georgia makes a statement this week. I think they come out looking good. I think they get a 42-10 win. BYU at Arkansas. I think it's going to be a low-scoring, good game as well. If anyone's telling you they know exactly how this is going to go, they're lying to you. I think it's going to come down to turnovers. And I think KJ Jefferson makes a play late for Arkansas to get a 24-20 win. Georgia Tech at Ole Miss, sleepy game written all over it. Like I said, sandwiched between the big non-conference game against Tulane last week and then the Alabama game next week. Ole Miss better be careful. They're giving up 18. I think they get the double-digit win, but I don't think they cover. And then Tennessee at Florida, the big one in the conference this week. I think it's going to come down to the wire here. Tennessee's not had a lot of success in the Swamp. Only 2 wins in the last 50 years in Gainesville, and they play there every other year for you people that have been living under a rock. I think Tennessee's defense is going to be the one that steps up here, getting the 24-21 win, leaving 3-0, 1-0 in conference. Rest of the SEC, we mentioned the big news. I think Tyler Buchner, about 95, 99% sure he's getting the start in Tampa this week. A&M should be able to lock down ULM. Auburn may be a little sleepy, looking ahead to Texas A&M with Sanford rolling to town. Auburn should roll, though. Vanderbilt needs this one in the worst way. They need to go to Vegas and get the win against UNLV and first-year head coach Barry Odom. Kentucky has to get going at offense. They've had chances this third week. They need to go in and looking good and cohesive on offense. Now, before we get you out of here, a little bit shorter of an episode, but again, we're starting this one a little late. But money-making Thursday. We already got Memphis minus 13.5. I'll check that one for you after the episode. We have some interesting ones here. I'm going to go the Florida team total under 26.5. I'm going to go Florida scores under 26.5 points this week against Tennessee. I think Tennessee's defense is one of the most underrated units in the country. I like the Vols' defense. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game, where I said 24-21. I like the Florida total team point total under 26.5. And then I like the Florida-Tennessee under as the game as a whole, under 58.5. I think it's going to be, like I said, 24-21. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game in Gainesville, so give me those two. Like I mentioned, I think Georgia comes out and makes a statement. Give me Georgia minus 27.5 at home against South Carolina. I don't know how South Carolina puts up a lot of points with that offensive line. This is an offensive line to give up. We know 9 sacks to North Carolina, averaging less than 2 yards on the ground. The offensive line is porous at Georgia. Georgia is sleepwalking. Kirby's making up motivation, making up propaganda to get his team motivated. I think Georgia comes out with a statement. Give me the Dogs minus 27.5. I think they win this game by 4 touchdowns or more. Another one, I like this bet. Alabama minus 20.5 in the first half. Throwing Tyler Buchner in there. I like that one. Not really before that. Makes it a little bit interesting. I don't feel as confident in that one now, but give me 20.5. Alabama minus 20.5 against South Florida in the first half. Feel confident. Not as confident with a new quarterback in, but I like it. Kansas, minus 28 at Nevada. I think they go put it on the Wolfpack before Big 12 play starts next week. Even if they get up big, I think Jason Bean is enough to go get the job done at the quarterback position. I like the Louisville total team, the total team under. I like 31. I think Louisville goes to Indiana and scores under 31 points. I kind of like the Indiana defense a little bit. Watching them against Ohio State 2 weeks ago, give me Louisville under 31 total team points. I like that. And then a little player play here. Give me Jaden DeLaura, the Arizona quarterback, against the UTEP Miners. Give me Jaden DeLaura over 265 yards passing. Over 265 yards passing versus the Miners this week. I feel pretty good about these bets, guys. I'm going to go check on the Memphis one here in just a minute. But again, for money-making Thursday, we're off to a slow start right now. There's no denying that. Overall, us picking the games in the SEC, we're fine. But some of these other non-conference games, week 3, it's tough, man, with these transfer portals, but it's no excuse. But here are the money-making Thursday bets for week 3. Memphis minus 13. Florida team total under 26.5. Florida, Tennessee, the game under 58.5. Remember, I like the low-scoring game, 24-21 final. Georgia, give me the 27.5. I think they look good. Come out, win big. Alabama minus 20.5 in the first half. I think Bama's up by more than 20.5 at halftime. Kansas minus 28 They're better than that. I know it's on the road at Nevada, but they're better than Nevada. I like them minus 28. Louisville, team total under 31. I like Indiana's defense. And then finally, the player play here. I like Jayden de Laura, the Arizona quarterback, over 265 yards passing versus UTEP. So a little bit shorter of an episode. We don't have a guest tonight, like I mentioned. We're supposed to have Cooper Patagna from 247 Sports come talk a little college football, some recruiting. But again, had the late night class we had to go to. Wife's pregnant. I mentioned that to you, so we had to do that. We're going to push him to next Thursday. But again, we broke down all the SEC matchups, the Big Six, the other ones, the breaking news. Tyler Buchner is going to get the start against South Florida. I'm about 95, 99% sure of that. And then my money-making Thursday bets for you. Start cashing in on those guys. Well, we may have lost this Missouri one, guys, but I feel like we're going to go win the rest. We're going to go win the rest of them. I promise you that. It's early. It's early, guys. We're all still figuring that out. More film comes out each week. It's only week 3. People are going to say it's a slow week. I don't think so. I think there's going to be a lot of crazy things, a lot of fun things happening this weekend on the gridiron. We also talked about a little SEC baseball schedule. Remember, this is a full SEC show. We don't only talk about football, and I know it's fall in the midst of September. It's also a basketball show, and it's also a baseball show. So we talked about the 2024 SEC baseball schedule release. But guys, should be a fun weekend. If people are telling you it's going to be a slow weekend, they're going to go out there, do yard work, go to yard sales, go out there shopping. Is that a slow weekend? I'll wait till next weekend when we got all the great games going on in college football in week 4. No, something good's going to happen this week. You need to be glued to your couch. And if you are out and about, hey, get on your phone, man. It's going to be a fun weekend. Something exciting, unpredictable is going to happen, just like it does every week in college football. But again, I appreciate you joining us on this episode of Mock 10 Sports. You have a fantastic weekend.